Welcome to the deep dive where we take your source material, your essential articles, the research, and really just cut right to the heart of it, to what really matters.
Exactly.
And today we are diving into what has to be the ultimate paradox in reality TV.
Oh, yeah.
Kody Brown, the man who built his entire public persona on multiplied love, finding himself, well, trapped. That's what the sources suggest. Trapped in a state of functional monogamy.
It really is the final, deeply ironic twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kody Brown, probably America's most visible advocate for plural marriage.
For sure.
And now he's basically confined to a relationship with just one wife, Robyn.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today, I think, is to look beyond just the celebrity messiness.
Right.
We need to examine the system he called the patriarch's principle,
Yeah.
and figure out how that whole ideology just fractured under the weight of, let's be honest, personal preference and ultimately system failure, which led to, 4 marriages dissolving in just 14 months?
Yeah.
It's pretty staggering.
That structural breakdown, yeah, that's exactly what we need to unpack. Kody's whole identity seemed wrapped up in this idea of, spiritual superiority through having multiple wives.
Yeah.
But if we rewind to the beginning, when Sister Wives first hit the airwaves back in 2010, they were really positioning themselves as these ambassadors, right? Fighting societal prejudice.
They absolutely were. And they had that powerful tagline, love should be multiplied, not divided.
Catchy.
Very. It suggested this kind of emotional abundance you just couldn't get in monogamy.
Yeah.
He painted himself as this principled guy, guided by faith, making sacrifices for the bigger family unit.
Yet the sources we've looked at, they reveal pretty quickly that the whole system was, well, maybe built on shaky ground from the get-go.
It's actually stunning when you dig into it. Kody himself has confessed since then that his first jump into polygamy, it wasn't about expanding happiness at all.
Really?
No, it was more like a desperate corrective measure. He admitted his first marriage to Meri was unhappy right from the start. And he hoped adding Janelle, his second wife, would somehow, dilute the unhappiness. Spread it out, maybe.
So wait, this whole massive undertaking, this public declaration, it wasn't fundamentally about more joy. It was about managing existing dissatisfaction.
That seems to be the core of it, yeah.
That single revelation about the first marriage, it just forces you to rethink the entire story, doesn't it? The system was flawed right at the foundation.
Absolutely. It was like trying to build a mansion on, quicksand, an attempt to stabilize something already broken. And then when the key ingredient holding it together, which seemed to be duty, commitment, shared struggle, got replaced by intense romantic passion, well, the whole thing just became incredibly unstable.
Which brings us neatly to the catalyst, the seismic shift, as the sources put it.
Robyn Sullivan.
2010.
Her arrival.
Yeah, her integration was absolutely pivotal. This wasn't like the relationship with Janelle, which seemed more duty-based, or the platonic thing he eventually had with Meri.
This courtship with Robyn was only 6 months, apparently intensely romantic. And Kody was open about looking for a soulmate, not just another partner for the principle.
And that kind of passionate, preferential love, it just blew up the existing structure, didn't it? The one that relied on Meri, Janelle, and Christine working together based on, duty, friendship, shared faith.
It completely destabilized it. And what's really fascinating, like you said, is the sources point out Kody barely even tried to hide his preference.
Right. It wasn't subtle.
He couldn't. Or maybe he wouldn't. This new love created an immediate hierarchy. It was all about romantic preference now. Christine even said it later, quite plainly. Something like, he just preferred to be over at Robyn's house.
Oof. Making that emotional shift visible and, painful for everyone else.
Exactly. And it wasn't just emotional. It became structural.
Illegal.
Ah, yes. The 2014 legal maneuver. Meri legally divorcing Kody.
So he could legally marry Robyn and adopt her children from a previous marriage.
That move right there.
Yeah.
That seems like the moment the original power structure just
Yeah.
collapsed. It really was the nail in the coffin for that initial setup. I mean, publicly, it was framed as this noble sacrifice by Meri for the kids. But the practical effect, it transferred all the legal status, the financial control, the decision-making power, pretty much exclusively to the Kody-Robyn unit.
So essentially, the first 3 wives became what? Financial and legal satellites just orbiting this new legally bound core?
That's a great way to put it. Satellites. It was a total disenfranchisement, and it absolutely laid the groundwork for all the financial fights and resentment that eventually tore everything apart.
Because they lost their equal standing at the center.
Exactly. It basically enabled the exploitation, maybe unintentionally at first, but enabled the exploitation of their work and money because they just didn't have that same legal pull anymore.
Okay, so that legal move set the stage. But the actual, like, rapid-fire collapse, what was the trigger for that? If you're finding these insights into how these complex family systems can break down interesting, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what we uncover next.
Right, the trigger. Well, the sources really point to the COVID-19 pandemic as the sort of fuse that lit the dynamite. It accelerated what was probably already inevitable.
How so?
Kody basically grabbed onto the pandemic restrictions. He adopted these extremely strict protocols for the family.
Which, let's be real, seemed a bit out of character given his usual approach.
Oh, totally. The irony, right? This guy who was always pushing for movement for the big shared property suddenly becomes this, like, ultra-cautious public health czar.
Convenient.
Extremely convenient, because it justified him staying almost exclusively with Robyn and her kids. It gave him the perfect cover story for the favoritism that was already pretty obvious.
And that made the preference undeniable, visible, constant.
Yep. And that transparency, that blatant favoritism is what seems to have led directly to the mass exodus.
Yeah.
The whole structure just dissolved in, what was it, 14 months?
Just 14 months. Incredible. Christine was the first to officially leave November 2021.
Yeah, her departure had been brewing for years, you could see it. But the final straw, according to reports, was really concrete. Kody refused to travel for their daughter Isabel's major back surgery.
Wow. That's significant.
Hugely. That moment just crystallized his absence for her. She apparently said something like her life was totally wrapped up in what Kody needed, but he just wasn't there for her or for their kids when it really counted.
Then came Janelle, December 2022. She always seemed the most independent one.
She did. And her leaving seemed driven by a couple of things. Growing financial arguments, for sure, but also, really critically, Kody's relationships with their adult sons. Forces describe them as toxic and deteriorating.
So she had to choose between Kody's authority and her kids.
It seems like it came down to that, yeah. A really tough spot.
And finally, Meri, January 2023, though their relationship had been over in all but name for years, hadn't it?
Oh, for a long time. Purely platonic. But Kody started making these public statements about no longer loving her, not being attracted to her.
Ouch.
Yeah. And that just made her position completely untenable. There was no way to spin it anymore. So she formalized the separation.
Okay, so when you boil it down, the core complaint from Christine and Janelle, at least, it wasn't really about the religious principle of polygamy failing, was it?
Not fundamentally, no.
It sounds more like economic and emotional exploitation. They were living like, as the sources say, functional single mothers.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Expected to pool their money into this shared family pot.
While Robyn was essentially living in a full-time monogamous marriage, subsidized by their labor and finances.
Exactly. She got the full-time husband and the financial backing of the larger family. And how did Kody handle being called out on this?
Predictably, perhaps. Deflection.
Total deflection. He consistently painted himself as the victim. It was their betrayals. They failed to submit to his authority. You know, his demands for patriarchy only seemed to get louder when he felt his control slipping.
So the Brown family saga, it didn't really prove that polygamy itself is inherently unworkable.
No, I don't think you can say that based on this.
What it did seem to prove is that this specific model, this pretend polygamy maybe, where it's basically a cover for a favored monogamous relationship that exploits the work and money of the other women, that is completely unsustainable.
Absolutely. It was like an emotional and structural house of cards, you know?
Yeah.
All dressed up as some kind of higher spiritual calling.
And the collapse of that house of cards has forced Kody into this new reality. He's now, get this, a self-proclaimed monogamist.
I know. He's actually said, I'm a monogamist now. Said he wouldn't be interested in another wife because apparently he couldn't love them as much as he loves Robyn.
But the analysis suggests this isn't really a conversion based on, like, newfound belief in monogamy.
No, not at all.
No.
It seems like a conversion born purely out of failure, of rejection. The sources talk about him being in a deep state of mourning, feeling depressed. He hasn't just lost wives. He's lost his entire identity as the patriarch of plenty.
And he's trying to rewrite the past to cope, isn't he?
Oh, big-time historical revisionism going on. He's now claiming he secretly felt polygamy was unfair for a long time, that he could never get out.
Casting himself as the victim again.
Exactly. It's a classic psychological defense, right?
Yeah.
Shielding himself from the reality that his wives left him because of his actions, or lack thereof, his neglect.
But what really blows up that narrative, that claim of always wanting out,
is his behavior back in season 20.
Yeah. Where he showed, visible excitement, the sources say, at the thought of maybe getting a new wife.
Right. But there was a catch, wasn't there?
A huge catch. The new wife would have to basically adore Robyn. That was the condition.
So his philosophy shifted. It wasn't about the principle of plurality anymore. It was just keep Robyn happy, period.
It seems less about monogamous commitment and more about desperately trying to replace the attention he lost, that narcissistic supply, as some analyst put it.
That's exactly what it sounds like. He misses being the center of attention for multiple women. He even admitted it's something like, I think I need a lot of attention. It's been different, where I don't get as much attention.
Wow.
So Robyn hasn't, fixed his fundamental need for validation. She's just become the only person left to provide it, which sounds like a lot of pressure.
Immense pressure. Okay, let's pivot to Robyn then. The maybe unintended architect of this whole situation. She says the collapse left her gutted, depressed, questioning everything.
Mm-hmm. And the public view of her is just incredibly polarized, isn't it?
Totally. Two main camps seem to exist.
Yeah, the first is the villain narrative, the puppet master.
Right.
A lot of viewers seem convinced she strategically, systematically maneuvered herself into the top spot.
Using what some sources call weaponized victimhood to isolate Kody, make him her protector.
Exactly. That's one theory. Then there's the other idea. Folie à deux.
A shared delusion.
Yeah, basically, Kody and Robyn got caught up in this mutual story they told themselves, this persecution narrative, where the rest of the family were the bad guys, the jealous enemies.
But if she genuinely wanted sister wives, wanted that big family dynamic she always talked about, why did the sources suggest she never really pushed Kody to, spend equal time with the others? Doesn't that kind of poke holes in the shared delusion idea?
It absolutely raises questions about her stated motives, doesn't it? It makes you skeptical. And here's what I think is crucial. Maybe she's not just mourning the loss of sister wives as friends, as peers.
What else?
Maybe she's mourning the loss of the system that subsidized her ideal life.
Yeah, explain that.
She got the benefit of Kody's focused attention, like a monogamous husband. Plus, she benefited from the financial contributions and the shared labor, childcare, household stuff from the other wives in that large family structure.
Right. Their income and their help freed up Kody's time and the family's resources, a lot of which then went to her and her kids.
Precisely. And now that whole support infrastructure is gone. She's just left with high-pressure, one-on-one monogamy she, perhaps inadvertently, helped create.
Which explains why she's now the one reportedly pushing for a return to polygamy.
Exactly. She misses the subsidy. She misses the buffer, the ease the system provided her.
Wow. Okay. So where does that leave them now? Just the two of them? Can this relationship actually survive carrying the full weight of Kody's ego, his needs, their shared history?
Well, the sources paint a pretty bleak picture. Some describe their current union as an emotional implosion disguised as monogamy. Kody's identity, his sense of self, seemed to require multiple mirrors, multiple sources of validation. Robyn now has to be all those mirrors. She has to bear this enormous emotional weight that was once spread across 4 women.
Tasked with being the sole provider for his insatiable need for attention, as one analysis put it.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly high maintenance and, frankly, probably unsustainable long-term for anyone.
And think about it. Functional monogamy requires skills like introspection, compromise, real conflict resolution within just the couple.
Skills Kody has pretty demonstrably failed to develop over, 3 decades of plural marriage?
Yes.
He could always just move on to another wife if things got tough.
He didn't have to resolve conflict. He could just relocate.
Exactly. And that's the deep, tragic irony of this whole thing, isn't it? In her successful quest, to become the favorite wife.
Robyn has accidentally trapped Kody and herself in the one relationship structure he seems least emotionally equipped to actually handle.
Yeah. Their marriage now, based on the sources, looks less like a romantic partnership and more like a kind of survival pact.
Held together by what? The TV show money? Fear of irrelevance?
Seems like it. Propped up by the financial incentive of staying on television, and maybe a shared fear of what happens if they lose that spotlight.
It sounds like a transactional, incredibly fragile structure, basically defined by the very chaos that created it.
That sums it up pretty well.
So, for you, the listener, thinking about all this, here's maybe a provocative thought to chew on. If the monogamy Kody and Robyn have now is really built on, maybe mutual delusion and financial necessity, What actually happens when the cameras finally stop rolling for good? Can their bond, just the two of them, possibly survive Kody's ego when all that need, all that demand for adoration is focused solely on one single target?
That is a truly profound question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The system itself failed spectacularly, yes, but the lessons here about ego, accountability, the real cost of imbalance in relationships, those remain for all of us to think about.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our deep dive for today. We explored how Kody Brown's brand of polygamy, which seems to have started as a way to fix an unhappy marriage, just fractured completely when real romantic preference was introduced, leading to this fragile transactional monogamy.
And the core takeaway really feels like the failure wasn't necessarily the concept of plural marriage itself. It was the exploitation of labor, of resources, of emotions that happened under the guise of religious commitment in this specific family.
You've been listening to The Deep Dive, where we unpack your source material and extract the most important insights.